Okay, so for the till morning tea, what we're going to do is jump in and explore these soils. So even though these soils are from very close to each other, they actually ended up quite differently. Yep, and that's because they've been managed differently. They've got different types of vegetation on them. Does everyone see that this soil here under the forest tends to be influenced by a lot of woody material and litter? And this soil over here is obviously influenced by perennial grasses. And so you actually end up with a different pattern of topsoil. They both have biology in them, so holding this one up, I've got how many bacteria am I holding in my hand? Millions, billions, yep. It's the same here, there's lots of bacteria. There's fungi, there's bacteria. There's also nutrients as well. There's nutrients. These soils have a structure. We talked about structure outside. The cane soil, you better take that home down and claim it, because there's not many cane guys can claim soil health and feel good about it. It's good. Simon Matson likes to, so you may as well join him. But soils have a structure. You can see the structure that's emerged from that, and you can see the structure that's emerging from that. Does everyone see how they've both got the aggregation or these crumbs in them? Yeah, even though they're under very different management. So topsoils can be different, but there's sort of aspects of them that are all really important. So when we're managing the soil, we're managing an asset. It's an asset in your business. You've paid for it or you're leasing it, and it's a valuable part of your agricultural business. But part of your topsoil are the plants that are growing into it. So plants are part of the topsoil, especially that part of the plant, which is the root system. So the roots are part of your topsoil, even in a forest. It doesn't look like there's much grass or roots, but this is full of roots, tree roots. So it's part of my topsoil. So the way we're going to jump in and explore the soil is you guys all have a card. So does everyone want to hold their card up just so we can see all the cards? So those of you with a yellow card, you're a microbe, you're a soil microbe, and you don't have any brains at all, right? You're completely brainless. So those of you with a green card, you haven't got much more DNA than those guys, so I wouldn't be laughing much. So you guys are the microbes in the soil. The green and the blue cards, you're larger soil organisms. So the way we're going to understand this soil is we're going to jump in and explore the soil now, this topsoil, and we're going to start from these guys, from the plants, because plants are a key part of any topsoil. So who's got the plant card? All right, out you come, sir. I've got a seat for you. Have a seat. All right. So here we've got a plant growing in a topsoil. What's that key process that plants do that we rely on, all the rest of us on Earth rely on? Plants grow on, what do they do as they grow? Yeah, they grow into the ground, but what's that key process that plants do every day when there's moisture and stuff around that we all rely on? Photosynthesize. Plants photosynthesize, the P word. So what are the 4 ingredients that this plant needs to do the photosynthesis story? They need 4 things, and it's not beer, so don't say beer. Sunlight, moisture or water, nutrients, carbon dioxide. Sunlight, water, nutrients, and carbon dioxide. Where is this plant getting its nutrients from? Out of the soil, through its root system. Where's this plant getting its water from? Originally there, but it's got to get into the soil first. So the plant takes its water from up for its roots. Where's this plant getting the sunlight from? The sun, unless you're in a shipping container growing something illegally. Yeah. Where's this plant getting its carbon dioxide from? Because that's the 4th ingredient. Out of the air. So plants grow by grabbing carbon out of the air, they fix it, and they turn it into sugars. Everyone happy with that? Carbohydrates, all the different terms. At the same time, they're taking nutrients from the soil. So plants take carbon from the air, create sugars, combine that with nutrients, and they turn it into this stuff, what we call organic matter. Everyone happy with that? So organic matter is carbon plus nutrients. Yep, that's what it is, and plants have made it through photosynthesis. So you're busy fixing carbon and creating sugars and energy. So I've got some sugars for you for today. So you're busy pulling in carbon from the air and creating sugars.
Okay, so I distribute them.
Don't give anyone anything. What do you want to be so helpful for? So plants are growing, they're fixing that sugars and they're creating carbohydrates. Where do plants put that energy? As they create energy, where do they put it? What do they do with it? They grow. Which way do they grow? They put some of that energy into top growth and building a root system. So all plants on Earth allocate some of that energy into top growth and some of it into a root system. Trees obviously allocate a lot of it into trunk, whereas grasses don't have high woody trunks. But all plants are allocating more or less into top growth, a root system, and there's a third place that this plant is putting some of its energy. Does anyone know the third place that this plant is putting some of that energy that it's created? It does put a little bit, but there's a third main place when we're talking soils that this plant is putting some of that sugars, energy. Actually puts it out into the soil around it. So plants actually give off sugars from their roots into the soil around them. But you can see the effect that's had on this soil. It's turned soil into topsoil. The influence of that root volume and the sugars coming off, the compounds coming off the roots while the plant's actively growing, modifies the soil and creates topsoil. So that process is called exudation. They exude sugars, other compounds. There's a grazier in New South Wales who was very good with words. He just said, Dave, plants dribble. So we'll get you to dribble, Mr. Plant.
Dribble now.
Yes, dribble now. That's it. No, don't move. You're a plant, you can't walk. You're not a triffid. Okay. Sit down. You just, don't be a triple, just dribble.
Dribble.
Yeah. No, don't give this bugger anything.
Dribble. Dribble.
Just a few, not too many. Yep. That's the idea. That's the idea. There's a reason that the plant does it.
Not only one direction, is it?
I like to see targeted application. Right. All right. So that plant is creating sugars, creating carbohydrates, and then some of the energy it's putting out into the soil around it as exudates or dribble. Why do plants do that? Why do plants give off some of that hard-earned energy into the soil around them? There must be a reason. Nature always does something for a reason, evolution, and the plants are adapted to do that. What benefit does it give the plants? In what way? Yep, definitely on the right track. In what way can they? Because they don't get their carbon back from there, they get their carbon from the air. So what benefit is putting some carbon that way? Definitely on the right track. What specific benefit will that plant get by feeding that carbohydrate to the soil? And what will those microbes do in return?
There's a symbiotic relationship.
Yep. Yep.
Protect the roots.
Yep. A whole lot of benefits. And one of the key ones, what were the 4 ingredients that plants need to grow, to photosynthesize? They need, what was some of the other things apart from carbon dioxide they need? Sunlight. Which they get from building a root system. Sunlight they get from the sky. So what's the 4th thing they needed? Nutrients. So if we're not around with a bag of fertiliser, that rainforest is not getting fertilised. Plants can't move around apart from this one, can't move around looking for their food. So they've got to access nutrients from the minerals that are there where their roots are. So plants have, the challenge that plants have as they've evolved is how to access nutrients. So the way that it's worked is plants have co-evolved with a community of life in the soil because that community of life accesses nutrients from the minerals, and in return it needs energy. So the plant gives it carbohydrates, and in return the community of life gives the plant nutrients. Does everyone see that two-way deal? When you feed cattle, what are the 2 things you worry about with animal forage quality? What do we say? What's the jargon? Energy and what's the other thing when you're feeding cattle? The grass quality. Energy and protein. Energy is carbohydrates, protein is the nutrient. all life on Earth needs energy and nutrients. I'm going to use the word nutrients rather than protein, because protein is just one nutrient. They also need calcium and zinc and sulfur and phosphorus. So if we just say everything on life needs energy and everything on life needs nutrients. And energy is the sugars. So all of that life can help you get nutrients, but in return it needs energy, and that's the deal that's evolved in nature. So you're chasing nutrients, that's why you dribble. That's why you give out energy into the soil. You modify the soil to suit your needs. So what are some of the nutrients that this plant needs? Look, nitrogen, what else? Phosphorus, yep. Anything else? Calcium? Any others? Is that it? Whole heap of them. Potassium, zinc, sulfur. So there's a broad spectrum of nutrients that plants need to grow. And if the plant's not being fertilised, like in that forest, those trees over there are accessing that full spectrum of nutrients from whatever's in the minerals. And they have to work with that topsoil community to access those nutrients. So we're going to explore how that works, because it's obviously a really important process, and it's all about nutrients and how they cycle and become available. So let's look at that. So we're just going to pick on two nutrients for today, and that's nitrogen and phosphorus. So we'll start with nitrogen. So we're looking out over here over the guy's property. Where's most of our nitrogen out here on the farm? Where's most of the nitrogen? Anyone know where most of this nitrogen is out here on this landscape?
In the air.
In the air. Most of the nitrogen on the earth lives in the air. So does anyone know the percentage of air we breathe that's nitrogen? How much of this air we breathe is nitrogen? Anyone want to have a guess? We're breathing it in now and out.
I'll have a guess, 10%.
10%? 2%? Try 78%.
78? That's a long way out.
The thing is, nitrogen is the dominant gas on the earth. There is thousands of tonnes of nitrogen where we can see. There is thousands and thousands of tonnes. The earth is not short of nitrogen. These pastures are not short of nitrogen. What's the problem we have? What is the problem that nature has with nitrogen? Getting it out of the air and available in the ground for life, for plants. That's the challenge nature has. There's oodles of nitrogen. The problem is getting it from being a gas to an available form. Okay. So we only have to go back a couple of hundred years and there was no synthetic fertilisers like nitrogen fertilisers. So how does nature get nitrogen out of the air, because there's tonnes in the air, into the soil for plants to take it up?
Lightning.
Lightning brings a bit down. Very important process. Yep, lightning. What else? Rain associated with lightning. There's a third key process that's not so much wind. No. So lightning, rain, and there's a third process that's evolved on Earth to get nitrogen out of the air and into the soil. You want to have a guess?
Photosynthesis, like it's sucked into the plant?
Not by plants directly, no, but you're definitely on the right track.
Okay.
Have a look at your card, give you a hint.
Bacteria.
There are certain bacteria on the Earth. Don't worry, I know you've got no...
Fixed nitrogen. Bacteria. I live on plant roots.
Yeah. Well, I know you don't have a brain, so I knew it would take you a while to work out. So the key thing is that there's certain bacteria across the earth that have evolved ways to grab nitrogen out of the air. They're called nitrogen fixing bacteria. Just like plants grab carbon out of the air, they grab nitrogen out of the air. And we've just found one here without a microscope. So where do you live, Mrs. Bacteria?
Where do I live?
Yeah, it's on your card.
I live on plant roots.
Well, here's a plant root, so out you come.
Oh, gosh. Lucky we're a couple.
No, sit on the chair, yeah. Okay. Look, you don't have a brain, so stop talking.
Half of one.
Okay, so here's a bacteria. This particular bacteria has evolved to live literally inside the roots of certain plants. That's how they've evolved, they've adapted. Why would a bacteria do that? Why would a bacteria kind of adapt itself to living literally in a plant root? What would it get by doing that? Have a look. It gets protected for sure, but what else is it chasing? What do we all need? Energy, and particularly energy. We all need carbohydrates. So if you live right next to or inside a root, what are you really close to? The sugar factory. the energy factory. So that bacteria has evolved there because it's close to energy source. We all need carbohydrates. Cows do, we do, bacteria do. But you're not going to let that bacteria hang out in your root unless you get something in return. Yep, it's a two-way deal. have I given the wrong cards out here?
You're doing real good.
Okay. So you're a specialised bacteria, and you can grab nitrogen out of the air.
Yep.
You live under the ground, so obviously for you live in the roots under here. So for you to access nitrogen, which is in air,
Yeah.
the air's got to flow into the soil. So we need good pores and airflow into the soil. So you'll grab that nitrogen out of the air if it flows past you. So I've got some nitrogen for you. Just borrow your book, I'll give it back to you. So you're grabbing nitrogen out of the air.
Oh, yum, shit.
Yeah. And you need some nitrogen. So you're allowing this bacteria to live there because you know the bacteria can fix nitrogen. The bacteria doesn't have any brains. So who leads the relationship?
I do.
Right, I'm glad you got some. So you'll need some nitrogen. And if you don't feed the bacteria any energy,
Sugar.
yep.
You got no brains, you
So
can't.
the point is that the plant's the one that kind of dictates and manages that relationship to a great extent. Once the bacteria's colonised the root, then the plant is controlling that process to access nitrogen for itself. Does anyone know the type of plants that have these kind of bacteria that fix nitrogen living on their roots? There's a family of plants that have these kind of guys hanging out on their roots. This is the legume family. This is the legume family.
Smell it.
Yeah. So legumes have partners that live on their roots called rhizobia bacteria, and those rhizobia bacteria fix nitrogen, and then the legume can access nitrogen. So what are some examples of some legumes that can help us get nitrogen? Sensitive weed. Yep. Yep. Soybeans. Yep. All. Yep. Yep. Stylos, secas, all of your legumes. They wattles. Yep. Soybeans, cowpeas, lab, sun hemp. They're all coming in. So they're all legumes, and they all have a partner called a rhizobia bacteria. Does anyone know the name of the structure that they live in on the roots? What it's called or what it looks like when you see them there? Nodules. They live in nodules on the roots. So you can dig up a legume plant and actually look for those nodules. So if you see those nodules, that's where these guys are living. That's you. Has anyone bought legume seed before? What do you usually buy with it when you buy the seed? That's what this bacteria is. So you're buying that bacteria so you know when the young legume starts to sprout, those bacteria jump on the young root system. So it's usually better to buy inoculum most of the time so that the legume can grow without them, but it won't bring you in new nitrogen. So this relationship's called happy marriage. No, I'm just kidding. It's called symbiosis. Yep, it's a win-win. Both sides of the equation are benefiting from that relationship. So we know quite a lot about rhizobia, and they're really important. There are other bacteria in your topsoil that also can fix nitrogen, that can grab nitrogen out of the air. Is there any other bacteria cards here? Just have a look at your card quickly. Are you a nitrogen fixer?
I eat organic matter.
Yep.
I am free living
Yep.
in a mineralised nutrients.
Yep. No, so you're not an N fixer. We haven't got any others, but we don't have a big enough group. But some other bacteria live here in this zone, and they can grab nitrogen. But they don't live in the root. They just live near the root, because near the root, what is their energy source? Dribble, particularly this simple stuff. So there's lots of bacteria hanging out here, and some of them are specialised nitrogen fixers, but they need to eat energy, and in their case they eat off the ground. They're grubs, whereas you're way too fussy for that. Yeah. You live in the root. So they're called rhizosphere bacteria that hang out in the dribble zone. Yeah. So there's different bacteria that do the job, and they're fixing nitrogen. So now, Mr. Legume, you're accessing some nitrogen, which we're trying to get out of the air. We'll come back to nitrogen in a little bit. We'll just jump over to another nutrient for a little while. I'm going to pick on phosphorus. as the other nutrient just for today. So we saw that nitrogen comes into your topsoil from the air. Where's most of our phosphorus out here in the landscape? Where's most of the phosphorus in these soil types or these landscapes? Anyone know where most of your phosphorus is?
In the bedrock.
In the bedrock. Phosphorus likes to live in minerals. So most of the phosphorus on Earth tends to live in minerals and rocks. So that's where most phosphorus lives. Gold wrappers. I think we had more sweet tooths yesterday. There was a few getting into the fantails. Fantails are finished, so I had to get some more. So in most soil types and landscapes on the Earth, almost all your phosphorus tends to live in minerals and rocks. So is it available or locked up for plants? Most of it. Most of it tends to be tied up in what we call unavailable. So what's the challenge that nature has with phosphorus? Unlock it from the rock. Make it more soluble. So how does nature do it? Because that forest is doing it, if you're not fertilising it. How does nature get that phosphorus off the rock?
Erosion.
Definitely erosion can be a part of it. Yep. Erosion can be a part of it, and in particular natural weathering associated with it. Yep. I'll just wait for that phone. So in some situations, in some parts of the Earth, rainfall and natural weathering will release it. Does anyone know how Inside Tech Pivot makes superphosphate? What do they do to rock phosphate? Because rock phosphate's just locked up phosphorus. How do they treat it? They grind it up, but then they treat it with something.
Heat or?
There's another tool they use to process the mineral. They hit it with sulfuric acid. They actually hit it with sulfuric acid. So to make superphosphate, you process rock phosphate with sulfuric acid, and the acid actually breaks the phosphorus and makes it available. Yeah. So if you want to make triple superphosphate, what do you reckon you could use to make a higher phosphorus type product? You hit it with phosphoric acid. So you whack it with an acid, and that will release the phosphorus. So in nature, lots of things in nature have evolved over time in topsoils to release phosphorus, but they all usually use the same tool, and that is they use acids, organic acids. Yep. So there are guys out there in the soil who are able to crack that phosphorus using an acid. Yep. So let's see those guys. So has anyone got a card, something to do with phosphorus? Have a look at your cards. Is anyone in the phosphorus game? We're looking for yellow cards in the phosphorus game.
Fungi.
You're a fungi. Where do you live, Mr. Fungi?
I live on plant roots.
You live on plant roots, and you are in the phosphorus game.
Phosphorus.
Yep. All right, out you come. I've got a chair for you. Here's a plant. So here's a nice root out here. So we've got a plant. So you realise you're going to have to manage this fungi, don't you?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so here we've got a plant, and on this plant is a bacteria, and now we've got a fungi that's attracted to living there. So this fungi is actually half in the plant root. It's adapted to living half in the plant root of its compatible plant. Why would the fungi adapt to that? What does it get by living there? What's it get? Getting its sugars. It's getting its energy. So you're able to access energy from there, but that plant's not going to let you access energy unless you give it something in return. And the other trick that this fungi's evolved is this fungi is out exploring the soil with what's called hyphae, and when it comes across some minerals with phosphorus on them, they can release the phosphorus and take it up. So you're able to access phosphorus.
Oh, beauty.
So
I'm managing you.
So you realise you've got to give him some energy or he's going to drop dead, don't you?
Not at the moment.
You got to give him some energy,
Yeah, but
babe.
he's got that for the time being.
Okay.
I'll just feed it to him slowly.
All right.
Give it to you now, otherwise you'll...
I better help this plant along. Does everyone see that there's a two-way deal? That fungi, for that fungi to explore the soil and access phosphorus, it can't do that without energy. The plant will help it with energy because in return it's able to get some phosphorus that the plant otherwise couldn't access. It's been tied up. So the plant is encouraging partners to help it access phosphorus. And in this case, it's a fungal partner, a fungi. So the name of this fungi is called VAM, or mycorrhizal fungi. Does anyone know the types of families of plants that have these kind of partners living on them, fungal partners that help them access phosphorus? There's lots of different families. Does anyone know which types of plants have these kind of... No, different type of fungi, yep. So it's pretty much most families of plants, grasses, trees, they all have these partners helping them. The only plant family that doesn't have this partner helping them are the brassicas, so cabbage family. But most other families of plants on Earth have these kind of fungal partners who help them access calcium, phosphorus and zinc. So the guys are growing sunflowers now in Cane. One of the reasons they're growing sunflowers is sunflowers has a strong association with these kind of fungi. So by growing sunflowers, you increase these fungi and you can increase the access to your phosphorus. Yeah. So does everyone see that this plant is encouraging these partners who are helping that plant to access nutrients? And I'm just giving you two very introductory examples because it gets very complex, as you can see in the soil. But now you're growing and accessing nutrients. But for you to grow and access nutrients, you're going to have to give energy. Yeah, there's just no way around that process. Yeah. I'm glad he's finally getting the hang of it. So I just want to... took a while. We should have sprayed him out ages ago. Yeah. So the key thing is that not all soil types have the same amount of phosphorus. So yes, we need biology to help us cycle nutrients, but we also need to have nutrients there, correct? We need a bucket of nutrients. So not all soil types have the same reserve of phosphorus to access. So I'm just going to sort of give you guys a bit of a handout just for 2 or 3 minutes to look at different soils and how much phosphorus they actually have in them or don't have in them. We're looking at the second page of this handout, and you can see it says total fertility in the different soils. So it's actually 9 different soils from across eastern Australia, from Queensland right down. And what we've done is we've taken a soil sample, we've sent it off to the lab, but instead of asking the lab for what's available phosphorus, available sulphur or whatever, we've asked the lab what's the total bucket. It's a little bit like when you go to the bank to borrow money. Do they want to know just what's in your cash account? No, they want to know the full story. So we've just got our topsoil sample and we're asking the lab to analyse the total reserve or the mineral composition. So the first soil there, number 1, is a soil in southeast Queensland near Gatton on the heavy black soils. Have a look at the total phosphorus in that first soil. See how it's nearly 1,300 parts per million total phosphorus in the topsoil. The third soil along, number 3, is near Stanthorpe on the granite belt. So a granite-based soil. How much total phosphorus is in that soil? You can see that different soil types have different overall reserves of fertility, depending on the geology and how they form. Soil number 5 is a high iron soil up near Innisfail. You know the very red soils as you go up the Palmerston? That's just there, it grows sugarcane. How much phosphorus is in that soil type? Yep, heaps. And if you look the next soil over, number 6, is just up the road at Mirrawinny. It's under Mount Bartle Frere. It's a granite soil between Babinda and Mirrawinny, or just near Mirrawinny. And what's the total phosphorus there? So you can see, and then number 7 is near Collinsville on low phosphorus landscapes. And when you do the test on the ancient soils in the Northern Territory, they're less than 50 total phosphorus. They're very ancient soils. There's not much fertility left for the long geological time. So different soils have different overall levels of phosphorus. Have a look at calcium across the top. Everyone see the calcium at the top there? The first soil at Gatton, over 5,000. Number 3, the granite soil at Stanthorpe, 650. The granite soil, number 6, up the tropical granite. Look at the calcium in the tropical granite, number 6. Notice how soil number 5, the red soil near Innisfail, has lots of phosphorus, but what about its calcium levels? Pretty low. Everyone see that? And that's the influence of rainfall. So a similar soil type further south in Victoria or New South Wales, those high iron soils, would have more calcium because it doesn't get quite the rainfall. So that calcium's out on the barrier reef and hopefully the coral are using it to grow. Yep, so that's that long-term cycle. But does everyone see that different land types or grazing landscapes have different amounts of phosphorus in them? So we did a workshop the other day a bit further north on the volcanic wall country, sort of north of Greenvale, and the guys there had a property near Aramac, I think it was, and they'd brought cattle on, and the cattle out at Aramac were chewing bones all the time, and when they brought them up there, that country's high in phosphorus, the animals stopped seeking phosphorus. There's plenty in the grass. Yeah. So it just goes to show that the overall fertility influences pasture quality, animal feeding behaviour, productivity potential from your landscape. And it comes back to the total fertility initially. Which elements are really high in most soils? Have a look at that handout. Which ones do you notice that most soils have abundant mineral levels of? Iron is usually really high, and if you look at number 5, the high iron soils, you'll see just how much iron it has. What are some of the other elements that are really high? Aluminium is naturally really high in minerals along the earth. It's not a problem as long as it stays in the minerals. In some soils it comes out and gets active, or what we call exchangeable, but most of the time it just sits in the mineral. Yep. And any others that tend to be high? Potassium can be, depending on the mineral type. But silicon is also can be quite high. Yeah. So does everyone see that different soil types, not only do they have a different texture, but they also have a different inherent fertility. And that's why knowing your overall fertility helps you understand the potential for that paddock or that landscape or that soil type. But it also helps you be realistic about how much phosphorus or calcium I can actually access. So whether I have a little bit of phosphorus or a lot, I still have the challenge of making it available. And we can see that one of the main ways that nature releases phosphorus is with acids. And in the wet tropics, in acid soils up on the wet tropics, the weathering and the rainfall and the acidity of the soil just naturally releases phosphorus. In an alkaline, high pH soil where there's no acids, these fungi become critical, because you're able to squirt your little acid and release it. Some plants, their own dribble, as they give off dribble, it has acids in it, organic acids, and then you can release your own phosphorus. So there's more than one way that it happens. Yeah. But you've got different acids being created, a lot of them biologically, and that's releasing phosphorus. And that's the reason why the sunflowers are growing, or the guys are starting to put sunflowers in rotation. So I'll let you just have that reference for later, but if you do soil testing down the track, it's often handy, at least initially, to know the total fertility. Once you know it, you don't have to test it every year because it doesn't change, it's your soil type, but it just helps you understand the potential fertility of a landscape. All right, so we've got a bit of phosphorus cycling. We don't have any sweet tooth because none of you have had a lolly yet. Sometimes there's wrappers all over the place, so you're healthy up here. Oh, have you? Oh, that's good.
We're saving them until we start to grow.
Okay. Well, hopefully you're growing now. It's supposed to be growing. So you're accessing some nutrients, some nitrogen, and you're starting to grow. So what's that key process? When plants grow, what do they create? What is this plant creating as it grows? Organic matter. Everyone happy with that? It's creating organic matter. So that organic matter has carbon in it, which came from photosynthesis, and it has nutrients in it, which came from. So that's what organic matter contains: carbon or energy and nutrients. So now the plant's growing. Plants grow in the forest, they grow as well. And as plants grow, they create organic matter. So we have all of this kind of organic matter starting to be created. Everything from sticks, grass, fresh grass, green grass, logs, everything from very woody stuff, dry grass and mulch, green leaves, right through to dribble. That's organic matter, that's sugars. And under the ground we've also got what being supplied to the soil? Dead roots. Yeah. So does everyone see that wherever you are on Earth, any topsoil on Earth, plants grow and they contribute organic matter to the soil. So that organic matter comes into the soil from the top and also from the under the ground. Is everyone happy with that? So in the forest, a lot of the organic matter falls from the top, and in the grassland, a lot of the organic matter comes from the root biomass. But they're both organic matter. Then there's dribble, there's logs, there's everything in between, litter on the surface. So there's all this organic matter over thousands of years being put onto and into the soil. What happens to all of this organic matter over time? What happens to it? It breaks down. What's the proof? How do you know it breaks down? What?
The softwood log will deteriorate
Yep.
in a matter of, say, a decade.
Yep. It disappears.
Yeah.
That's how we know it breaks down. It disappears. So most organic matter that you feed the soil disappears. There are some soil types where your organic matter doesn't disappear, where your organic matter just builds up and up and up in a soil. Does anyone know the type of soil you end up with when your organic matter just keeps building up? A peat soil. That's what a peat soil is. A peat soil is a high organic matter soil. So how come a peat soil gets lots of organic matter and the rest of our soils don't have much or have much less? Because most of the organic matter that's fed to the soil tends to break down. So that's what we're going to explore now. So is there anyone out here that likes to eat organic matter? Have a look at your cards. Is anyone? Who are you and what do you eat? You're a fungi and you eat organic matter. You are? I'll come back to you. Anyone else like to just munch on organic matter?
Yeah, potworm.
Potworm, we'll come back to you a bit later. You're a bacteria and you like to eat organic matter. Any other bacteria or fungi? I'll start with the bacteria and the fungi. So we've got a fungi over here, and fungi, this particular fungi is different than that fungi. You don't like eating off the ground. You are way too fussy. You have to have a compatible plant root. If I take you away from your compatible plant partner, you're not going to survive long. Does everyone see this fungi is completely dependent on a partner? This fungi here, however, you're a general soil rat bag, yep, and you just eat crap on the ground. So there's your paleo lunch and dinner as well. And if you get fussy with that, I'll give you this just for a diversity in your diet. Yep, so this is a general decomposing fungi that just breaks down organic matter that plants have given to the soil. Notice the type of food, you can put it down if you want, the type of food that fungi like to eat from a digestibility point of view. Is it highly digestible or low digestibility? If you're feeding cattle? Very low. High in carbon, very low digestibility. Then we've got a fungi, a bacteria over here. Here's your food.
Oh, good.
Yep. So you're also a decomposer and you eat it. What's the difference in the type of organic matter that bacteria can eat compared to fungi? More digestible, easier to break down. Which one of these would break down faster? That would break down faster than that?
Oh, this is green, it gives you squirts. You know, if they eat too much green clover in that.
It's too digestible. When it, yep, no, you're on exactly the right path. The point I'm trying to get is that's highly digestible and that's bacterial food. This is very low digestibility and that's what fungi like to eat. That one will break down really quickly. That one will break down 10 years, you said, for a log to go.
Softwood log.
Yep, yep. So you can see the speed of breakdown is much slower. The difference between a rumen and a topsoil community is that a rumen doesn't have these fungi that can break down, but they're in the topsoil, whereas the rumen only has the guys that break down the digestible food. Yep. So in this topsoil here, I've got trillions of bacteria, correct? The reason I have is most of them are eating the dribble. It's highly digestible and the simple nutrients and the easy to digest organic matter. So most of you, you're hanging out here, there's trillions of you eating simple organic matter very quickly. Yep. You're here as well eating the more woody roots and a few things like that, but you're much slower at eating what you eat. Yeah, you just take your time. Yep. But that's why we've got lots of stuff in here. They're all eating that organic matter. In that organic matter that you're eating, I'll have to pinch a bit of this. That organic matter that you're eating has energy in it. Everyone's happy that it's got carbon in it that came in from photosynthesis, but it's also got a little bit of phosphorus, nitrogen, calcium, because the plant took that up. So organic matter from a plant has a bit of nutrients and energy. So that's why you're eating it, to get your energy and nutrients. Mixed diet, very healthy. And this simple bacteria over here with no brain, you're also eating this stuff because in it is your energy and nutrients. So you're getting energy and nutrients. Okay. I'm surprised you can count. You're a bacteria. That's very impressive. Yeah. Okay, so you guys are decomposers and you're decomposing soil organic matter. Yep. And you're accessing your energy and nutrients by doing that. So I'm just going to ask you guys a question because we want to see why this organic matter disappears. If we have a compost heap, if we make a compost heap, which is just organic matter, and you guys start eating it to decompose it, how high will the compost heap be in a couple of months? Why? What will have shrunk from the compost? Maybe some, definitely, but let's keep it at the same moisture content. Why has the bulk gone down? What is it about the bulk that's gone down? It is decomposing. Something's disappearing from this organic matter. Where's the carbon? Where's some of the carbon going? No, this has left the trees, so now it's just in the soil because the trees get their carbon from the atmosphere, so they don't need to take it back.
It's been eaten by worms. And
yeah, but why? Yeah, so now the carbon should be in the worms. So why wouldn't it just be the same amount of carbon?
out of that converter.
Yep, and some of the carbon's gone somewhere. Anyone know where it's gone? So you had a lolly before. You realise that lolly has almost no nutrient value. It's just energy. It's just sugar. So what is sugar? It's just a chain of carbons. So sugar is just a chain of carbons, what we call a carbohydrate. So how was that chain made? Who made that sugar? Sugarcane. What does it do? It gets carbon dioxide and it turns it into, sticks them together, turns them into a sugar. So you've eaten that sugar, which is just a chain of carbons, and then your body has used the energy in it.
So it's just disappeared, basically.
You've breathed in oxygen, and what have you breathed out? So when you finish burning up the energy from the sugar, most of the carbon, as you pulled it apart to eat it, you breathe it out as CO2. Is everyone happy with that?
Yeah.
So when you eat a bowl of pasta or bread, most of the carbohydrate in that, when you're finished with it, some of it goes around here, yep, and goes to keep you warm and do things, but a lot of it just goes back out as CO2. Does anyone know the term we use for that process? Respiration. So that's respiration. We respire. We breathe in oxygen and we breathe out carbon dioxide. The way we got our carbon dioxide was we ate carbs. So it's the same with you bacteria and fungi. You're eating carbs. So a lot of the carbon in that material is going respiring. So off your lawn right now, there is carbon coming off as the bacteria eat that material in the soil. So that's just respiration. And that's why a compost heap shrinks. A lot of the carbon in it's gone. It's not a bad or good thing, that's just what happens when material breaks down, except in a peat soil where it doesn't seem to happen and you seem to get the organic matter builds up.
Is that because it's inorganic?
It's because somehow it's stopping decomposition or slowing decomposition, and so you end up with less respiration. Yeah.
Is it healthy?
It's just a different situation. Yeah, often not great for agriculture, peat soils, for other reasons, but yeah, it's a different sort of landscape. So you end up with less respiration. But in most situations, respiration happens after you break down organic matter and the carbon goes in the air. So you guys are breaking down to get your energy and nutrients. A lot of the carbon in that's just disappearing as you decompose it, but you're happy, you're just having a good time. Not that you know it, you don't have a brain, but you're just eating and enjoying things, righto? So now we'll see how happy you are. Is there anyone else here that likes to eat bacteria, fungi or organic matter? Righto, now we've got everyone coming out of the woodwork. Yep. Oh, chasing the yellow cards. Who's got a yellow card? Who are you? Just show everyone who you are. You're a protozoa, and we've got another protozoa here. So as everyone see these two cards here, they're also yellow. So what does that mean? They're yellow cards. They've got no brains. Yep. You're microbes, but you're a little bit bigger than bacteria and fungi. You guys are called protozoa. So protozoa live in this part of the soil because this is where all the action is. This is where all the roots are, this is where all the dribble is, this is where everything's happening. And there's trillions of bacteria. So protozoa live there, and you move through the soil and you eat bacteria and occasionally fungi. So my nickname for you guys is Pac-Man. So anyone remember what Pac-Man eat? Remember Pac-Man on the screen? What did they eat?
Everything.
No, on the screen in the game they don't eat everything. There's a few specific things they eat. No one knows? Power pills. They eat power pills. And so you guys are a bit like Pac-Man because you move through the topsoil and you eat bacteria and fungi for your energy and nutrients for your food. So I'll get you to have a chew on that fungi and get your energy and nutrients, and I'll get you to get up and eat that bacteria. There's one over there. No, and whatever the bacteria does, don't eat their grass. You're not a herbivore, mate. You would like to eat the bacteria.
You've got to give them the lollies.
No. Look, I'll give you a rock if she's mucking around. And you're not grazing, you're a predator. Right. Yeah. You got everything? You're not giving her, she's eating you. There's no give and take, she's just killing you. So you guys are predators. You prey on them and you eat them. It's not like a gentle grazing event, you eat them. You're a predator. Because you guys don't worry, because bacteria and fungi, you're good at reproduction. You don't have a brain, but you're very good at a few things, so you'll be back. So now you protozoa, you're moving through the soil, eating for your energy and food. What does every living thing do after they eat?
Yeah. After that.
Pass what? Pass.
Well, I've said it already.
Yeah. Very polite group. So you do the business. So we'll get you, protozoa, to move through the topsoil where all the action is and show us the business. I can't help you out here. You've got to do it yourself.
Where you got me busy?
Just move through. It doesn't matter, it's the soil. Just do the business and then
Drop these back here.
just in the soil, yep. And then keep some of them for yourself and then go back to your seat. Righto. I'm almost speechless. Okay. So, the protozoa ate some bacteria or fungi biomass, yep, to get their food. They preyed on them. In that material was nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, zinc and carbon, or the energy, yep, carbohydrate. So you keep some of it for yourself, but you have excess that you don't need. So a lot of the carbon you're going to respire, you breathe it out. So does everyone see it? This next step, more carbon's going that way. So carbon keeps disappearing back as a gas. That's all right, because who'll grab that CO2 at some point?
Plants.
You'll grab it back. So that's the carbon cycle. So we're all breathing off CO2 or belching it out of a factory, and the plants hopefully are grabbing it and pulling it back in. But the nutrient side of it, you use some of them, but the excess nutrient you've just excreted out. And the thing about protozoa is you excrete a high ratio of what you eat. It's quite a high ratio. So you've excreted out some phosphorus. Is that phosphorus now available or locked up at that point? Available. Yep. And if it's in the root zone, then guess who might grab it? Yep. Yep. And if you're a legume, and so now you've pooped out a little bit of nitrogen, excess nitrogen, into the soil, and you're a legume, so you can get your nitrogen from your partner. I'm a grass growing next to your legume, and someone's just pooped out soluble nitrogen in my root zone. So guess what? Now I can get it. I couldn't get it before because I didn't have that partner, but now it can come through to me. So does everyone see that as organic matter breaks down, or the living part of organic matter, because organic matter is the dead stuff as well as the living organisms, it's all the organic matter. As that gets eaten and some of the nutrients get released and made available. And that process is called mineralisation. That's what mineralisation is, the breakdown of organic matter and the release of nutrient. And if it's soluble in the root zone, then who's got a good chance of getting it? The plant. Yep. So you can take some of it up. But to do that, you've got to build a root system, maintain a root system. Yeah. Let's have a look who else is out in the zoo. Now we've got some green cards. So everyone with the green card, hold them up so I can just see. I know I've got a few. All right, I'll come back to you in a second. I'm going to start with the nematodes. Just show everyone what nematodes look like. Highly detailed picture. So everyone's heard of nematodes? No. You haven't heard of them? So they're very small creatures in your soil. They're actually aquatic. They live in the films of water in your soil. They're just a little bit bigger than protozoa. So you can't really see them with the eye. Some of them you can, but they're just a bit bigger. You guys move through the soil because you're chasing your food, energy and nutrients. You're looking for food. So who do you eat, Mrs. Nematode? Yep, it's on your card there, sorry.
Bacteria, yes.
So you eat bacteria and then you poop. You eat and you crap as you're moving through here. And as you crap, you release and cycle nutrients. Yep. But the carbon you ate, a lot of the carbohydrate you ate, you've just respired off. But you eat and then you poop. And we've got another nematode. Who do you eat, Mrs. Nematode?
I eat other nematodes.
So you eat, you're a predator on other nematodes. So you eat that nematode and then you crap. Yep. Who's got the springtail card? How many legs do springtails have?
6.
Yes, good guess. Yes, and a tail, well done. Yep. A phukra, it's called. And so you're an insect? Yep. And so 6 legs, you're a little bit bigger. We can see you with the naked eye. You're still very small. You move through the soil. You need airspace because you're a terrestrial organism. You're not aquatic like nematode. Who do you eat? You eat nematodes. So you eat these guys and then you poop. Yep. So you see how we're now getting into the different guys eating the ones below them in the food chain. Yep. There's lots of different types of springtails. We don't have enough people or cars to cover it, but there's specialised springtails that just eat certain things or the crap of other things, but you eat and then you crap. Then we've got some mites. Who's got the mite cards? How many legs do mites have?
Wake up.
8. Who are they related to? Who are they related to? Spiders, yep, correct. So who do you eat, Mrs. Mite?
I eat nematodes.
You eat nematodes and then you crap. You eat fungi and then you crap. You eat springtails, mites, other mites, and then you crap. So does everyone see that there's all these layers in the food web eating either other things, living things, or eating organic matter? And after they eat, they do the business. And does everyone see what's actually happening? You are getting nutrients too. It is the main way that nutrients cycle in any soil is through this biological process called mineralisation. There's other processes happening. Then we've got another green card, the potworm. So potworms are kind of like mini earthworms. They never get much bigger than about 10 mil. That's their adult, and they're always white to translucent. They're not reddy brown. You know, see a baby earthworm, it's reddish brown. They're usually smaller than that, but they're also never reddish brown. But they're like a mini cousin, if you remember that spy who shagged me and there's the mini me guy that's living with him. They're kind of like that with an earthworm. They're kind of like a mini cousin. So they do a similar thing. They eat organic matter and then they do the business. Yep. And then we've got any other green cards that I've missed? Any other blue cards? I'll just quickly show you some other cards. No, I won't. They're out here under you. Just bear with me a minute. That's all right. I'll just pinch this. Wait, don't worry, you can drop your lollies now.
You've got a big time with termites, I was going to ask you that.
Yeah. There's also lots of other guys in the soil like ants, millipedes, termites, centipedes, dung beetles, you name it. Obviously they're all there. Thank you. and those guys all either eat other things or eat organic matter. After they eat, they crap. So does everyone's kind of get the theme here? That if you're living in the soil and you eat plant organic matter or soil organic matter, or you eat each other, you are going to be beneficial because of what reason? You're cycling nutrient. I have to have nutrients there. You can't, that's going to slow you down if you don't have the fertility. But the fertility is there, then the way it cycles. So does everyone see that you need organic matter to cycle nutrients? You need carbon. Who drives the show here? Who's the one that drives the strength of this cycling and the capacity here of the soil to cycle nutrients? Plant, root systems, photosynthesis. So anything that compromises root volume, root activity, organic matter contribution to the soil is going to slow down that show and reduce the potential of that show. That's the problem in cane. The guys have severe compaction. The root systems have been compromised for decades. We all know that. The research has been done, and so the show gets problematic, and so you try to compensate by putting out too much solubility. You know, okay, well, we'll put out the soluble nutrient because our mineralisation process is not great. We don't have much organic matter to cycle. That's one of the problems in cane. So that key process of nutrient cycling is driven by the more diversity, the better it gets. Everyone happy with that? But I do need to have nutrients, and then the plant and the photosynthesis is key. The other thing that happens while the plant is growing roots and dribbling, and you guys are all eating, spitting, pussing, oozing, crapping and all the rest of it, is you start to create topsoil, soil structure, an aerated, balanced community of topsoil. It's very hard to buy that in a bottle. I can sell you stuff out of the ute, no worries, but it's not the same. So we're creating a topsoil. This whole community is creating a topsoil. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah. We might pull it up for morning tea. I might just give you a summary from a farmer in northwest New South Wales, a place called Delungra, who did this activity about 6 years ago now. I was with a group of croppers, and he came up to me in morning tea after the session and he said, Dave, we've always had a principle on our property. We don't care what comes on the paddock, as long as it shits before it leaves, it's welcome. That's what he told me. So he understood the key process going on here well before I did. So as long as it shits before it leaves, it's a beneficial. But we've got to have organic matter for them. We've got to have that diversity and the nutrients. There is one gang out there, or one set of organisms out there that are problems, and they're the ones that tend to eat living roots. They're the pests. Cockchafers, whatever it is, nematodes, or pest nematodes, not these nematodes. But in a healthy, balanced, diverse community, those guys are in a minority and they're kept in check. They're going to be there, but they're kept in check. So they're usually not an economic problem for you. Yeah, and that's what the research in cane showed. When you went into soybeans, put a soybean in the rotation, you immediately lowered your nematode damage in most situations. Right, everyone, let's have a break. Have a cuppa and we'll keep going a little bit, and then we'll get hands-on assessing soils after that. So back on the soils. So just I'm going to pull together what we did this morning, just cover the basic principles that we saw that was going on there, and then I'm going to introduce you to the RASH manual, which everyone can get a copy of. I think they're all floating over there if you need them, and which is just a way to assess your soil asset in the field and identify issues. So is my asset in working order, and if not, what is the problem with it? How can I improve it for what I want to do? So that's sort of what we're going to do in the second half of this session. But I just wanted to sort of summarise what we covered there. So I'm just going to come down and look at these two soils, because we had two distinct soils going on. You right? Someone give that man a whack on the back. So we've got this soil that's strongly under the influence of grass. This topsoil here has been influenced strongly by the pasture grass. And what other aspect of your management is influencing this soil apart from the grass? What other aspect of how you manage this pasture is influencing this soil? Grass is one part of the story. What's the other part of the equation? The cows. How many cows? How often the cows? Because they influence the grass, which in turn is influencing the soil function. So cows, well, human brain, cow, grass, soil, they're all interacting. So you can blame the cows, or you can blame the grass, or you can have a look and say, well, maybe I'm part of the picture. How I graze is also important. No, just blame everyone else, all right? No worries. That's fine. I'll sell you more product to fix the problem.